Welcome back to the Jazz Pursuit. In this video, we're going to look at the iconic standard Stella by Starlight, written in 1944 by Victor Young. Before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe below to stay up to date with new content and releases. Enjoy! So, first off, let's look at the key bits of information. Stella by Starlight has been played many different ways over the years, but the original is in the key of B flat major and in 4/4 time. The form is 32 bars, but it's not a regular A-A-B-A structure. Instead, it's an A-B-C-A-1 structure, with each section lasting 8 bars. A, then B, then C, ending with a variation on the A section, A1. Let's dive in and have a look at the harmony in the A section. So, the first important bit of information is that unlike many other standards, we don't hear chord 1 until the first bar of the B section. The entire A section is a series of unresolving 2/5 cadences, which is very unique for a standard written in this time. Let's take a closer look. The A section starts on E half diminished. E is a tritone away or an augmented fourth away from our home key of B flat major. This is the furthest possible distance away from our home key, and quite an interesting place to begin, as unlike many other standards, we're not confirming our home key in bar 1. This E half diminished is the 2 in a minor 2/5 cadence to D minor. E half diminished is the 2 chord, and A7 flat 9 is the 5 chord. But we never get to our target destination of D minor. Instead, we shift to another 2/5 cadence, this time heading towards chord 1, B flat major 7. C minor 7 is the 2 chord, and F7 is the 5 chord, but surprise surprise, we never reach chord 1. Instead, our 5 chord F7 turns minor and becomes the 2 chord in another 2/5-1. If F minor 7 is the 2 chord, then this means the 5 chord is B flat 7 and the 1 chord is E flat major 7. This is the first time we've resolved, and importantly, E flat major 7 is chord 4 in our home key of B flat major. Let's recap all that one more time. So we start as far away from our home key of B flat major as possible, on an E half diminished. This is a 2 in a minor 2/5 cadence towards D minor. E half diminished to A7 flat 9, but we never reach our target point of D minor. Instead, we shift to another 2/5, this time heading towards chord 1, B flat major. C minor 7 is chord 2 and F7 is chord 5. But again, we don't reach our target point, and instead the 5 chord F7 turns minor, F minor 7, and this becomes a 2 in a 2/5-1 cadence, which takes us to chord 4, E flat major. F minor 7 to B flat 7 to E flat major 7. Super! Now, let's keep going. I mentioned earlier that we hear chord 1, B flat major 7 for the first time in the first bar of the B section, and now we're near the end of the A section, we need to set this up, and this happens through a backdoor resolution. Our chord 4, E flat major 7, turns minor, E flat minor 7, and becomes the 2 in a 2/5, E flat minor 7 to A flat 7. Then rather than resolving down to D flat major 7, we instead resolve up a tone or through the back door from A flat 7 to chord 1, B flat major 7, and the start of the B section. The melody of Stella by Starlight is incredibly clever. Whilst all this unresolving harmony is happening, the melody floats over the top, using only the notes from our B flat major scale. This mix of complex harmony with a diatonic melody is quite a modern compositional concept and very hip for 1944. So, we start with a semitone fall from the root to the 7th of our B flat major scale. Then we walk up through the scale from the 6th to the root before falling to the 5th. Then we mirror the beginning. Rather than falling, we rise up a scale note from the 5th to the 6th. Then we develop and repeat this melody, starting the same before falling down to the root to end the A section. Now, let's hear how the A section sounds on the piano. Cool! Now for the B section. The B section is great, as it's almost a little summary of what's happened in the A section. We start on chord 1, B flat major 7, and then repeat our first minor 2-5 from the A section, E half diminished to A7 flat 9, but this time it resolves to chord 1, D minor 7. We then go back home to B flat, but this time it's B flat minor 7, and the 2 in a 2-5. B flat minor 7 into 2 chord to E flat 7 the 5 chord. Then, just like what we had in the A section, we resolve through the back door or upper tone to F major 7. Some people may refer to this F major 7 as a temporary tonicization, which means we temporarily refer to F, the fifth of our current key, as our tonic or chord 1. This is quite handy, and if we think about it like this, then we start on chord 1, F major 7, and then rise up to chord 2, G minor 7, and then rise up again to chord 3, A minor 7. This A minor 7 is then the 2 in a 2-5-1 that takes us to the C section. A minor 7 is chord 2, D7 is chord 5, and G is chord 1. Let's go over the B section harmony one more time, but with the piano. So, we start on chord 1, B flat major 7, and then repeat the minor 2-5 from the first 2 bars of the A section, E half diminished to A7 flat 9, and this time we resolve to chord 1, D minor 7. Then from here we go back home to B flat, but this time it's minor, B flat minor 7, and the 2 in a 2-5, B flat minor 7 to E flat 7, which resolves through the back door or upper tone to F major 7. Then we have our temporary tonicization of chord 5, F, turning it temporarily to chord 1. Then we walk up through the scale, chord 1, F major 7, to chord 2, G minor 7, to chord 3, A minor 7, which is the 2 in a 2-5-1 which takes us to G and the start of the C section, A minor 7 to D7 to G. Super! That's the majority of the harmony done. All that's left is the C section, which is 1 chord every 2 bars, and the A1 section, which is a variation of the first A section. The melody of the B section continues in the same style as the A section, diatonically in our home key of B flat major. The first phrase starts by rising up from the second to the fourth, and then we walk down to the root before jumping up to the third D. This is followed by an enclosure around the fifth, or the third if we think about the chord we're on, D minor 7. The next phrase is then a sequence of the first phrase of the B section. This time we jump from the sixth to the root before walking down through the scale to the fifth. Then we walk back up the scale to the root before jumping up to the third and falling to the second. Again, if we think about this relative to the chord, this is jumping from the fourth to the third of our A minor 7 chord, which is a mini suspension. Brilliant! Here's how the B section sounds with the chords and the melody. Great! We're through the trickiest bit now. Let's have a look at the C section. Earlier, I told you a white lie with the 2-5-1 to G at the end of the B section. This is a minor 2-5, not a major 2-5. So rather than A minor 7 to D7, it's actually A half diminished to D7 flat 9. This leads us to one of the most distinctive and important chords in the whole tune, G7 sharp 5 at the start of the C section. We'll talk about why it's this chord shortly. G7 sharp 5 is a dominant chord, and takes us where we would expect, to C minor 7 in a 5-1 cadence. All the chords in the C section last for 2 bars. Next, we have another backdoor cadence. We end the C section on chord 1 of our key, B flat major 7, but we get there through the back door. Again, this usually means upper tone, so A flat 7 is our dominant chord, which resolves upper tone to chord 1, B flat major 7. Whilst we're here, let's tackle the harmony in the final section, A1. It's made up of a series of minor 2/5s and starts exactly the same way as the first A section, with a minor 2/5-1 towards D minor. E half diminished is the 2 chord, and A7 flat 9 is the 5 chord, which takes us to D minor as the 1 chord. However, as I mentioned earlier, this section is a series of minor 2/5s, so the resolution point, in this case D minor, instead becomes a half diminished chord, and the 2 in the next 2/5. So we start with E half diminished to A7 flat 9, which takes us to D, but we tweak this to D half diminished, and it's the 2 in the next minor 2/5. D half diminished is the 2 chord, and G7 flat 9 is the 5 chord, which takes us to C as chord 1. We then repeat the same trick, and this becomes C half diminished and the 2 in the next minor 2/5. C half diminished is the 2 chord to F7 flat 9 as the 5 chord, and this time we finally resolve to chord 1, B flat major 7. This resolution to B flat major 7 feels even more surprising because we're expecting a minor chord, given that the cadence before is a minor 2/5. Now, let's hear the harmony of the C section and A1 sections on the piano. We start on our G7 sharp 5 dominant chord, which acts as a 5 in a 5-1 cadence and resolves to C minor 7. We're then aiming for chord 1 of our key, B flat major 7, and get here through the back door, a tone lower, A flat 7, which then resolves up to B flat major 7. We then have the A1 section, which is a series of minor 2/5s, and starts the same way as the first A section, E half diminished to A7 flat 9. This takes us to D, but this instead becomes a 2 in the next minor 2/5, D half diminished to G7 flat 9. This takes us to C, which becomes a 2 in the next minor 2/5, C half diminished to F7 flat 9, which finally resolves to chord 1, B flat major 7. Super! Now let's dive into the melody. The melody is again diatonic, using only the notes from B flat major. In the C section, some of the melody notes alter our chords slightly. We start with a semitone rise from a D to an E flat. This is the sharp 5 in our G7 sharp 5 chord. We then repeat this note before rising up to the 4th of our C minor 7 chord. From here, we then fall down through the scale to the root B flat, before jumping up to the 3rd D. This D on our A flat 7 chord is a sharp 11, so it's important that we change our chord here to A flat 7 sharp 11. The next phrase is then almost a sequence of the last, by walking down through the scale before rising up a 3rd. This time we walk down to the 7th A and then rise up a 3rd to the 2nd C. I find this kind of melody very interesting and unique. It's not what we'd expect of standards of this era. Usually, all the melody notes are based on the 3rd or 5th of our chords, whereas the fundamental notes in this section are really quite dissonant and hung on the upper structures of the chords. The sharp 5 on our G7 chord to the 11th on our C minor 7 chord, to the sharp 11 on our A flat 7 chord, to the 2nd of the B flat major 7 chord. Now, let's hear the melody and the harmony for the C section on the piano. Cool, so all that's left now is the melody for the A1 section, and it starts just like the first A section. Again, it's mainly diatonic. We start with the semitone fall from the root to the major 7, before walking up the scale to the root, then falling down to the 5th, or the 3rd, on our D half diminished chord. We then repeat the F before outlining the flat 5 on our C half diminished chord, which remains on our F7 chord to outline the flat 9, before resolving down a semitone to the 5th of our B flat major 7 chord. Again, this is another example of Stella's non-committal melody. The final chord is B flat major 7, but the final melody note is F, the 5th. The 5th would be the same if the chord were B flat major 7 or B flat minor 7, and doesn't outline this final resolution to chord 1, which we might expect. Here's how the final A1 section sounds with the melody and the harmony on the piano. The final thing I wanted to mention before the end of the video is about the first chord of the whole tune. A half diminished chord, a tritone away from a major 7 chord, is quite a common substitution. Here's a B flat major 7 chord in root position. And now we see that if I keep this chord the same, but change the root note to an E, a tritone away, this makes our E half diminished chord, with a flat 5, 7, flat 9, and 11 making up the voicing. This is a little something to explore and try in a few more standards in your own practice. So, that's all from me, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Do check out our Patreon page where we have PDF handouts available for each video, plus polls to determine future video content. Happy practicing!